Hello, welcome to the first ever recording of Mouthguard podcast. I am Hickey, joined with David J. Leiting Jr. How are you doing, Leiting?
I am doing fantastic. It is the thick of training camp. Preseason football has started, which sometimes I really don't care too much about. Camp excites me more, but that means the season's right around the corner, and all good things happen when football season starts.
Except if you're a Bears fan or a Lions fan, or probably a Packers fan, or not a Packers fan, a Vikings fan. Basically, anybody who's not a Packers fan in the NFC North is not usually fun.
Pain for us doesn't start until the second week of January.
That's neither here nor there because that's my favorite week of the year on different reasons. But um, we just wanted to say thank you for listening to episode 1B, technically. It means a lot to us, and we hope you stick around and continue to support us. And if you have any questions or want to hear us talk about anything, please find us on social media. The links and whatnot will be included in the episode description, but we really appreciate you. We were trying to figure out what the first ever topic we were going to talk about on the show was, and I think we landed on, given his metrics and statistics, had Randall Cobb been a Chicago Bears receiver with the stats he's accumulated, he would actually be the all-time leader in pretty much every statistical category for the Bears in history, which is both a tip of the cap to Randall Cobb in his career so far, and also a giant middle finger to the Chicago Bears and their lackluster history of offensive statistics and not looking so good on the offensive side. So I know you had fun sending that to me, and I'm sure you got a giggle out of it.
I'm just trying to figure out, does that say more about the lack of quarterbacks that have come through the Windy City, or does that say more about Randall Cobb? Personally, I think it says more about the lack of quarterbacks y'all have had south of the Cheddar Curtain here.
The cheddar curtain, that's a thing.
It is.
I've heard of the steel curtain, but never cheddar curtain. I trust steel a little more. I think actually what it's well, yes, you're right. The Bears inconsistency with a quarterback, especially in the pro offensive era of the NFL, which is like last 30 years or so, is pretty damning. But what I also think it shows is that the Bears in the last 30 years really haven't had a perennial receiver that's stuck around for more than 4+ seasons. Now, to the top of my memory, you got guys like when he was with the Bears and was, pumping out good numbers, Bernard Berrien, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, Allen Robinson. These are all players who played maybe 4 years at most with the Bears before not being re-signed, being traded, quitting, whatever it is. I think when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers and you can build a system around him, I think that goes a long way. So, you have Randall Cobb, who, how many years did he play before he went to Houston? Like 10, 8?
Yeah, we drafted him the year after the Super Bowl, so his first season was 11, and then his last season in Green Bay was 2018.
So I guess the big thing that Randall Cobb and other Bears receivers have in common is that they don't have any rings.
Fair, fair, ha 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 ha. So, do you know who the number 5 all-time leading receiver is for the Chicago Bears, yardage wise?
What years or a year?
61 to 66.
Is it Dick? No, Dick had played
Is
a lot
Dicka?
longer.
Yeah, is Dicka.
He,
Okay, this is pretty. This is actually pretty stunning. So Johnny Morris played from 1958 to 1967 as the all-time Bears leading receiver with just over 5,000 yards. Number 2 is
5,000?
yes, 5,059 yards. Um, Number 2 is Harlan Hill with 4,600. Elshon Jeffrey is number 3. Then Walter Payton is number 4. Dicka is 5. Curtis Conway, receiver from the 90s, is 6. And then Matt Forte is number 7.
That
You
guy's a
have almost
beast.
as many running. You have more running backs and tight ends in the top 7 than you do wideouts. That's
Hey,
insane.
that just means we're good at the fundamentals.
Yeah, that's NFC North, black and blue, NFC Central Division football right there, baby.
Right. So good place to start. We'll throw the Bears under the bus, but we'll also throw Randall Cobb's lack of rings under the bus, and I don't see that changing this year, unfortunately. We'll get back to the Bears Packers in a little bit here. So, to remind folks who haven't been following us on social media, I am a Chicago Bears fan. David is a Packers fan. So, of course, we're going to tend to gravitate to some of the issues with our teams a little more and highlight / call out certain aspects of our organizations a little bit. But we do also just love the game of football and want to touch on other key things that are happening around the league. I think we've been keeping a rundown since our first mock recording in April. So we have quite the list here of topics to go through. But I kind of wanted to start at the Kyler Murray drama that's been surfacing this offseason. So for those who missed it, Murray was coming into training camp wanting a deal. The Cardinals signed him to a $46.1 million a year extension for, I believe it was 5 years. Then the PR disaster began. There was a voluntary workout clause tied to the contract. So if he shows up to the voluntary workouts, $9.3 million will be given to him over the course of this deal, which is insane that you get $9 million for showing up to workout. I wish I got that much money. And then the study clause that he had to, on his own time, study 4 hours of film and the playbook per week was thrown into the contract for one reason or another. So, Lighting, what do you think of any of that, all of that? Not only his massive extensions, so he's, I think, top 3 paid quarterback now, if I'm not mistaken.
So I know that there's different clauses in contracts when it comes to like different voluntary team activities that you get. I think you get bonuses for. Um, the 4 hours of film study per week is the one that got me, because it's not like 4 hours is this significant amount of time to be studying film either. Like, to me, 4 hours of film study as a starting quarterback in the NFL sounds like less than the bare minimum. Like, to me, it's like, what are we doing here, guys? I don't know that. But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't that get removed? Didn't they come out and say that that's now not a part of it?
Sure is, because it caused such a backlash. And then there was the takes that I didn't agree with, that, like, Warren Moon said it was racist or something. And I'm not entirely buying that, because, if I thought a quarterback was struggling or whatever, like Matt Ryan, I'd throw it in there too. So I don't know necessarily that it came down to race per se, but there's definitely a lot of good takes. Like, if you're paying a quarterback $46.1 million a year, you really shouldn't have to throw in a clause in there to make them study. It's like, you're getting paid all this money, you're expected to kind of put in the work. And for all I know, Kyler Murray does do that. I'm not saying that he doesn't. So I
Well,
don't know why they bungled this so much.
the fact that they put it in there, I think, just tells you kind of where his mindset is. Like, I know he had the opportunity to go MLB with, was it the Oakland Athletics that had drafted him? Or no, was that no? Yeah, it was. He was the
Yeah,
Athletics,
the
right?
A's. Yeah.
Or yeah. So I think this just kind of gives you, it just kind of confirms where a lot of people thought his head was at, and is he totally bought into this, journey that he's on of becoming an NFL superstar, or just an NFL player in general? I don't know. Was it the playoff game that a lot of folks said he just kind of looked disinterested, and they were getting blown out, and he just didn't really look like he cared. So I think this just all kind of points to that.
Yeah, and but my buddy Calvin pointed this out to me. I think it was a couple weekends ago. He pointed out that there's this Reddit conspiracy theory that Kyler Murray plays exponentially worse on weekends when there's a Call of Duty double XP going on. I don't. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I have, and I actually saw stats around it. Let me see if I can find these. Yes,
It,
absolutely hilarious
it blew
though.
my mind. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times when it's just like, oh, like, man, I should be working, but like, oh gosh, there's this new thing coming out today, and it's like, it does divert my attention a little bit, but at the end of the day, I get the job done. So I think for a professional quarterback, also, like, how did his teammates not just like if you're the punter, that's like one thing. Like, play all the Call of Duty you want, but when you're the quarterback,
So, okay, I will say it's not significant. His passing yards per game on non-double XP weekends is 251. On double XP weekends, it was 245. 7 yards
oh
or
my
6 yard.
god,
I know that's nothing. Average passer rating was down 7.7. Completion percentage, okay. Completion percentage is down 0.12%,
that is
and
absurd.
his win-loss record is down. He's basically he's 2 games over 500 on non-XP weekends and 3 games under 500 on double XP weekends.
Well,
So
because
we
weren't
are
they
talking like minuscule differences here. Like
weren't
you're
they 8 and
splitting
0 until
puke
Call of Duty
hairs.
came out last year?
Yeah,
And
I guess they
then
were.
and then Aaron Rodgers comes to town, throws 4-yard routes the entire game, and wins
Yep. Yep. And then
because
Rasul
he doesn't
Douglas
have
has
Devontae
just the
Adams.
ugliest, weirdest interception ever.
Yeah, because AJ Green didn't turn around. Not still salty about that or anything. It's fine. What else do we have that is not Bears? Aaron Donald's back. There was kind of a sneaking suspicion that he wasn't coming back, and now there's sneaking suspicion that he's only going to play 2 more years. But bad news for the NFC because the Rams defense is significantly better with him in the lineup.
People forget Elton Jenkins stonewalled his ass, put him in a chokehold because he was so frustrated with them. So when they start going through top 100 NFL players this time of year, just remember that time he put Elton Jenkins in a nice little choke position because he was so frustrated from getting his ass kicked all night.
How do you really feel?
I think Aaron Donald is phenomenal. I just think it's funny that Elton Jenkins got so under his skin a few times.
Are you at all worried about this Matt Stafford having tendonitis in his elbow? Does that raise any concerns for you?
I don't know. He's an older guy. Truthfully, what's he going to play another season or two? I feel like it shouldn't harm him too much for the last, 32 to 36 NFL games he plays. But
all right. Well, I'm going to do my best here to summarize what's happening with Deshaun Watson. I'm sure as many of you are aware, a lot of women came out and stated sexual misconduct from Watson. So many so that you can't sit there and not pretend it didn't happen. I think it was up to 30, and I think 29 of the 30 as of now have been settled with non-disclosures, so we don't get to know what the settlement is and what the terms are and things like that. So the NFL hired an independent arbitrator to determine what the suspension should be and what their recommendation is. And I think it was assigned to a judge named Judge Robinson. Judge Robinson, after months of reviewing testimonies and whatnot, decided that 6 games was what the appropriate punishment was. At which point, Roger Goodell, who I rarely agree with, but in this situation I agree with, steps in and says that was not enough. So now they're hiring someone else to overview it again. And the latest thing I saw as of like yesterday or 2 days ago was that they're kind of leaning towards 8 games. But instead of finding him his base pay, which to remind everybody, Watson signed a new contract that was pretty much fully guaranteed. And so his base salary is actually super low because he's getting, I don't know what, 40 plus million in guaranteed money every year. So he's actually only losing in these 6 games something around like $150,000 or something. So instead of losing $150,000 and getting 6 games, it's going to be 8 games and a $10 million fine, which is still less than 5% of his salary over the course of whatever 4 or 5 years. So thoughts on the potential suspension coming, and did the NFL kind of botch this whole arbitration thing?
they absolutely did. I know you just said, I don't know if we've determined how much we're going to swear on this show or not, but you just said that you agreed with Roger Goodell, which I don't. I think this is all such bullshit. You have Kelvin
Well,
Ridley.
hang on. I agree with him, like kind of taking it back over. You don't agree with that?
don't.
You just
No, because here's the deal. Kelvin Ridley bet some money on his team and what was it? A year suspension? Did they initially say indefinite? Like, here's the
yeah, it's
deal.
a
Like,
year.
if the NFL really had an issue with this, they would have just made the decision. But instead, they turned it over to a judge to make the decision. And now it makes the NFL look like, oh, we care more than, and we think this needs to be more than what the judge said. The NFL just removed themselves from the decision-making process, probably knowing that it was going to be roughly 6 games. Because I'm pretty sure if you look at like the conduct code guidelines per the NFL, I'm assuming in there somewhere the judge had to come up with this number somewhere, or the judge just decided, you know, per quarter, per person, whatever. But if the NFL really truly cared, they would have done a lot more than just filed for a second opinion on this ruling, because we've seen them be very heavy-handed in other situations, and I just think it's a cop-out on their behalf. They don't give a shit.
Well, I was trying to think because normally he gets a lot of flack from the NFLPA and from fans for just stepping in and taking over and suspending people. So I think this time he was trying to do something a little different, and then it completely backfired, because my personal opinion is Watson shouldn't step on the field this year. And
Correct.
I think the Browns made the dumbest trade in the history of the NFL. But again, given where the winds are blowing, my personal opinion out of it looks like it's going to be 8 games. So NFL completely botched it. But I do appreciate Goodell stepping back in to try and increase the size of the penalty based on what we all perceive as a shitty suspension, because that 6 games is especially when you just said Calvin. I love that Calvin Ridley was trending on Twitter for 24 hours after the Watson suspension came out, because everybody's like, hang on a second.
Maybe it's the pessimist in me, but I still truly deep down believe the NFL knew this was going to be roughly a 6-game suspension, and that they were going to end up swooping in and requesting more games. I don't know. I want to believe in the good in people, and I oftentimes do, but it's hard for me to do that with Roger Goodell and the NFL oftentimes, when you just see the discrepancy between penalties for the crimes committed. Crimes in quotes.
Scumbag. All right, moving on to something a little more lighthearted. Well, first of all, so for those who don't know what Pro Football Focus is, it's a very deep dive analytical view of sporting, and I'm trying to think of the nice way to say this. It takes analytics to a premium to individualize performances, to rate each individual player out there on how well they are at the position that they're playing, and also defining metrics for teams to figure out which teams are stronger than others. Is that the unbiased?
I think that's a fair way of saying it.
Okay, so they released, and sometimes they come out with these like, here's the top 10 receivers according to our metrics, and then you look at it and you're like, what in the were you smoking? This is all the way back on June 7th. They came out with their top 10 coaches in the NFL currently, excluding, I think it was like rookie or second year coaches. So I think it was anybody with kind of 2+ years of experience. So I kind of just want to run down the list here of their top 10, and then we can start poking holes in it. So 10, Mike McCarthy. 9, Frank Reich. McCarthy's Cowboys. Reich, Colts. 8, Mike Vrabel from the Titans. 7, Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers. 6, Matt LaFleur from some douchey team. 5, Pete Carroll from the Seahawks. 4, Cliff Kingsbury from the Cardinals. 3, Andy Reid from the Chiefs. 2, John Harbaugh from the Ravens. And 1st, Bill Belichick of the Patriots, which isn't really a surprise to anybody. Who do you want to attack first in that list?
I think the top 3 are safe. I think you could not. No, you don't think so?
Andy Reid should be second, but I actually don't. I think Andy Reid should maybe honestly be first, because.
Sorry, by safe I meant the top 3 belong.
Oh yeah, we can interchangeably change out the top 3, but I think either way you slice it, that's the top 3. Yeah, I agree.
Belichick, Harbaugh, Reid, put them in whatever order you want. Yep, yeah. That's the top 3. I have immediate umbrage with Cliff Kingsbury at number 4. I mean, what in the world is this? Dude's never won a playoff game. His team folds after the first 8 games in the regular season.
In college.
Yeah, I mean, what analytics were they using for this?
they had it defined. It was something like added wins plus yards per game divided by yards squared, or I don't know, something ridiculous. But I mean, yeah, I'll go down to Pete Carroll. I don't like that one bit. I think if you're talking the 1950s offense, then people who are making this list would wet themselves. But if we're talking modern day of football, I think he inherited some. I think the GM work in Seattle often made Pete Carroll look a little better than he was, and I would love to see how good the Seahawks are going to do this year because they're not going to be very good. Because you look,
They're gone. Does anyone on the list? Maybe I shouldn't say gone, but they're not 4-5. Does anyone else on the list, LaFleur, Shanahan, Vrabel, Reich, or McCarthy, move into that 4-5 slot for you?
I would put Shanahan, then LaFleur, and then I
What
think
about
sixth would. Well, six should be Mike Tomlin. I don't know why he's not on the list. I think that's
Yep.
an absolute. That's ridiculous. The guy's had like two
I'd
losing
probably put
seasons in his tenure.
Mike Tomlin 4, truthfully.
I think Kyle Shanahan with what he has to work. I mean, I know he's got a great defense, but that offense, the skill players, I just think Garoppolo is not the greatest quarterback of all time. I know Debo's dynamic and Kittle is very good, but George Kittle he's kind of been injured a lot the last 2 years.
Yep.
So I still think with the type of scheming that they do in offense, you talk about an offensive genius. You're not. I don't know. I think he's a better offensive play caller than Sean McVay. But also, why is Sean McVay not on this list?
He
That's
just won a
another
Super
one.
Bowl.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there. And I also don't think he's ever. I think he's always been 10+ wins every year, if I'm not mistaken.
Or damn near close.
Yeah. So I'd say, yeah, I would say Shanahan, McVay, Tomlin. I put LaFleur down at 7. He's kind of in the Bill Belichick category of, all right, what would he do if he didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Yep.
Or what would he do if he didn't have the first or second best receiver in football on his team?
Yep.
But hey, we're gonna get to that. So yeah, I think, and also I'm sure you're super thrilled that Mike McCarthy's in the top 10.
I think it's hilarious that McCarthy's there, but like you said, Mike Tomlin's not on there. To me, that's the real head scratcher. Or even, um, Bruce Arians. I know he only coached for a few years, and he had Tom Brady when he won the Super Bowl, but he was no scrub when he was down in uh, Arizona either.
Arizona. Yeah, and he was a great offensive coordinator for the Steelers all those years too. And I think Todd Bowles is a great coach, but unfortunately he has the kind of the metrics of the Jets those years kind of weighing him down. So I think that's kind of unfortunate for that rating system. So definitely some holes to poke through there. But yeah, we can both agree that we have no idea why Mike Tomlin and Sean McVay are not on that list. They properly got ratioed, so it's fine.
I do think you can make an argument to put Sean McDermott ahead of Frank Reich as well.
Oh, I didn't even think about McDermott. Yeah, why the hell? See, I was just like getting over it now. Um, let's see where I was going to go next. Oh, so we do like college football too. So we're primarily an NFL show, but we will touch on a couple college football topics here and there, depending on their relevance. And David is a Wisconsin Badgers fan, and I'm an LSU Tigers fan. So we will occasionally touch on those teams as well, depending on their circumstances and what's happening with them. But the big news in college football, kind of since we last did our mock whatever episode, was that the UCLA and USC tandem are actually heading to the Big Ten in 2025, I think, and that the Big 12 is attempting to court the other Pac 12 teams of relevance to come to the new Big 12 because Oklahoma and Texas are allegedly going to the SEC. And now the Pac 12 or something within UCLA, like their board of trustees, is suing the school, or so it's this whole thing that's going to be played out in court. But what is your kind of thoughts on pretty much the end of geographical college football conferences as we know it?
I think that's the saddest part is the end of the geographical nature of it because like each conference always had their own identity, and I think a lot of that identity you could tie back to where they were located geographically. Like the Big Ten, lots of punts and lots of running the football and lots of defense. uh, like that's gone now that you're bringing in these teams from the West Coast. Like, what is like the spread offense of USC playing the run heavy offense of the Wisconsin Badgers? And I don't know, it's just a bizarre, that's kind of the bizarre nature of it. And then I also feel bad for some of those West Coast teams that are going to have to travel, across the country half the season now, um, for like 11 a.m. kickoffs. That kind of sucks for them as well. So I don't know. It's sad. It does kind of take away that uniqueness of college football where it was so geographical. I can't wait to see what fake trophy they come up with for like Nebraska versus UCLA and like the fake rivalry that we create, like they did when Nebraska joined the Big Ten.
A rose
Um,
sticking out of an ear of corn.
yeah, something just absolutely absurd. Um, but we all knew that college football was eventually headed this direction. With the slow conglomeration of these different conferences. And truthfully, as a fan of the Big Ten, I'm glad that they got the teams when they did because it lets you know that your conference is going to be safe while these other ones are starting to scramble for their life. Uh, the one that I think is in the most trouble is the ACC. I mean,
Oh yeah,
outside of Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and you could make the argument, um, recently UNC. Who else has any sort of,
Virginia
like
Tech.
oomph behind him? Yeah, Vatek and sometimes Virginia, but where are those teams going to go? I mean, Clemson, you could see going to the SEC. You could see both Florida teams going to the SEC.
Yeah, the
Um,
problem with the ACC though is it's primarily a basketball conference, which I don't know how much they'll want to mess around with that. Even though football is like the football, I don't know what the revenue difference between football for like Duke is versus college basketball is for Duke, but you're talking top 5 program in college basketball.
yep.
So I wonder if there's any basketball strings behind that.
So, quick sidebar: did you hear that there was like some inter-school rivalries going on at Kentucky?
What do you mean,
Um, who the hell is their head coach, basketball head coach at
Calipari?
Kentucky? Yeah, Calipari came out and said like, let's not forget Kentucky's a basketball school because Kentucky got a new practice facility or something like that for the football team, and it's like, man, 5-10 years ago, you never would have even had to have said like, oh, Kentucky's a basketball school. Like everyone just knew it. So I don't know if that says more about where their football program's going or where their basketball
Weren't
program's not
they
going.
weren't they
Sidebar.
undefeated when they played Georgia this year?
Yeah.
I think they were.
Yep.
Yeah, I think as much as I would love to see LSU's schedule, like because LSU's a top 15 program in college football. As much as I'd love to see a 15 team league filled with LSU, USC, Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, Alabama, etc., and they just beat the shit out of each other for 15 weeks and then figure out the playoffs from there or something. The games that stick out to me the most are when Purdue hosts Ohio State and beat them, or when uh, was like Georgia Tech had the kick six block. I can't remember who. I think it might have been Florida State or something that they beat on when they blocked a kick and returned it for a touchdown to win the game.
Then there was
Uh,
Alabama Auburn kick six when they missed the field goal and they returned
yeah,
it for a
those
touchdown.
kind of like upset victories. Like if there's this super league or something where there's 15 teams that are all better than everybody else, and Florida is 2-10 going into the final game, and they beat a 12-0 Alabama. Like that's not going to really have the same lure to it as a Appalachian State beating Michigan, which I know is in the conference game, but still the same kind of concept of a small team beating a bigger team. That college football is a lot more predictable than other sports when it comes to those kind of lopsided games. So I understand the commercial side of it, but I really think something has to be figured out. I think my idea that I was kind of saying to some friends was that they just need to kind of, and this would never happen, obviously. So I know it's not realistic, but just hear me out. They need to eliminate divisions in football. So D1, FCS, D2, D3 all just get put in the same bucket and do it soccer style where
Relegation.
there's like 12 leagues and you just go up or down based on what your record was, and that's that. And that would avoid any of this conference nonsense, this flip-flopping, or like let's say you are Oklahoma State and you're in the first division and you go 0-11, now you have to go down to the second division and play your next season there. And it has its loopholes, like basically it would dissolve every conference, which is a huge revenue stream for schools. It would probably cause mass transferring. But at the same time, like, what else is going to stop all of these schools from just changing their mind every 3 years and switching conferences left and right? I don't, I don't know. I think it's kind of silly.
I do think relegation would only further separate the talent, though.
Yeah, it would make the rich richer, but at the same time, the rich are
Because
already rich
look at
anyways.
Vanderbilt, they would never play another game in the SEC.
Well, I
Rutgers
don't
would
know.
never play another game in the
I don't
Big
know if
Ten.
Vanderbilt deserves to play any SEC games. If I'm being honest, they're kind of just
Well,
there.
exactly.
And they
That's my
just
point.
changed their helmet, the bastards. They actually had one of the best helmets, in my opinion, and they just changed it to a V. Ugh. Don't like it. All right, kind of one more thing here before we get back to the Bears Packers. There was a slew of receiver signings this offseason. We obviously know that Devontae was traded and then signed to a huge deal with the Raiders. Cooper Kupp got extended. Deontay Johnson got $18 million a year. Who else? Tyreek Hill got a massive extension with Miami. AJ Brown got traded and then signed by the Eagles, which is kind of funny because he makes about the same money as all these receivers I'm mentioning, except he's the only one that got traded. So it kind of makes the Titans look a little bad because they were the only ones not willing to do this. DK Metcalf got 3 years, $72 million. Deebo Samuel got 3 years, $73.5 million. So all of these receivers kind of reset in the market, which is such a shame if we had a receiver who was being hyped up a lot in training camp that was coming up to his last year of his deal, like Alan Lazard. But what do you make of kind of this slew of receiver signings? And is there any of those deals out of all of those that you dislike over the others?
Well, I mean, my heart dislikes the Devontae deal a little bit. That kind of sucks. But truthfully, on the Devontae one, I think I talked about this on maybe something else we did, Matt. But very happy for the guy to go play for his, quote unquote home team and play um, with his best friend in Derek Carr. Did you mention the who from Arizona just got signed? Not
Wasn't Hollywood Brown because he was speeding, right?
Nope. Shit.
I mean,
This is great. This is great.
The only two receivers I know in Arizona right now are Hopkins and Hollywood.
Yeah, he's not on Arizona anymore.
Christian Kirk.
Yes,
The
that
Jaguar
deal. Yeah,
that deal was stupid.
That was the one that I was shaking my head at the most. I mean, what did he get? Was it like 3 years, 52 or something like that?
Yeah, for never breaking 1,000 yards, man.
Yeah, I think it was 4 years, 72. With 37 million guaranteed. That's the one out of all of them that I shook my head at the
being
most.
A Bears fan.
Yeah, like that. That's the one that stuck out to me as poor decisions. What are we doing?
Yeah, that's a poor one. So yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I mean, the salary cap's only going up once this Apple TV Plus deal is signed for football, Sunday ticket. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess we have Darnell Mooney, and I bet Mooney will kind of fetch around that 18 million that Deontay got. I think he'll be somewhere in that region. So I would be more than happy to keep Mooney on 18 million a year because I think he's worth it. I actually lied. I found 2 more stories I want to talk about real quick. One is that the Dolphins were ready to give Sean Payton 5 years, $100 million to coach for them. Do you think Sean Payton's worth the $100 million they were offering?
I think it's another one of those. Yeah, it is kind of loaded because it's another one of those. You've been with a Hall of Fame quarterback most of your career. And oh, by the way, you didn't even break 500 a couple of those years with said Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think not.
And then the other was I agree. I think that's stupid. I also don't like Sean Payton very much. I think he's got some good offensive schemes, but I think he's a dirtbag. And then the Commanders have a new rookie quarterback, Sam Howell. He has kind of the weirdest diet I've ever heard of. He actually doesn't eat any red meat, and he's never had a burger in his life. Only eats chicken as far as meats.
I don't know. I feel like
Doesn't
if I
say
were to
it's like
pick,
for religious reasons or he's allergic or anything like that.
yeah, it's bizarre. I feel like, I mean, chicken's pretty versatile. You have chicken wings, you have chicken wraps, you can have chicken patties, chicken strips, chicken tenders. I don't know. I just feel like beef is such a staple. Steaks, burgers, meatballs, tenderloin roasts, brisket. Like, I don't know. Dude's missing out.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy I host a podcast with says, different strokes for different folks. But I feel like, man, to each his own. But you're really missing out. I don't.
Yeah.
I read that and I was quite boggled. But anyways,
Okay, hold on.
oh,
If there's one protein you can eat for the rest of your life, uh, chicken, beef, pork. What are you going with?
beef, because you can do so many things with it. You can have a steak, you can have a stew, you can have a burger, prime rib, brisket.
This is tough. I'm just thinking about how much I love the wings from Parker
I think
John's.
wings and chicken Alfredo would be the two that I would really, really, really miss. I love wings that are actually one of my top 3 favorite foods, which is above any beef dish. But you talk about the versatility of beef.
Yeah, that's tough. I'd have to do
We
some. I'd
might
have to do some homework, but I
we might have
think
to make that poll.
I'm leaning towards beef. But
Yeah,
I
we
don't
have
know.
to make
Chicken wings, man. Chicken wings.
on
And
this
then chicken
football podcast. We are
sandwiches.
going to be releasing a poll about the meat that you can't live without.
So what other options? You have chicken, beef, pork, turkey. I don't know. Turkey's kind of popular now, but I think
Uh,
that would get no votes.
Tofu.
You could put seafood, salmon, cod.
Yeah, well, we're not from Boston, so we're not going to say that.
No, no. Yeah, just beef, chicken, pork. The three
We'll keep
three
it simple.
mainstays.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, go find us on Twitter at
Bacon.
Mouthguard Pod. Bacon? That's pork.
I know. I'm just saying that's a
Oh,
pretty heavy
I didn't even
hitter.
think. Oh, you just ruined it for me. Now,
Bacon, pulled pork, ribs. Oh shit.
damn it. But I don't. I think the reason I discluded pork right away is I'm not a big pork chop guy.
No, but you think about all the other things. Ham.
God
Good
damn
ham
you.
sandwich.
Oh, I'm still sticking with beef. Maybe I don't know. I'll let you know on Twitter. Uh, at MouthguardPod on Twitter and Instagram. We would love to hear your particular opinions about this football related issue. All right, let's get into the Bears and Packers kind of updates. We'll see what we got here. I'm gonna start selfishly with something about the Bears that's really been pissing me off, and that is this stadium battle that they're having with the city of Chicago. So, for those who missed it, the Bears are surveying / in the process of purchasing a racehorsing track. The city of Arlington Heights, which is about 40 minutes northwest of Chicago. Also, just proved that I'm a Minnesotan because I said minutes instead of miles. I think that's kind of more like a that's a Midwest thing.
Yeah, it's a Midwestern thing.
But proving that I live in Minnesota and in the Midwest somewhere, I just did that. And the Bears want to build their own stadium, which has a lot of, let me tell you why that's a good idea. One, commercially, you're going to make the value of your franchise is going to go way up, a la building a $5 billion stadium, Stan Kroenke style, and tacking it onto the Rams total shares or whatever, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Bears are the 11th most, or I think it was like the 11th most valuable franchise in football without owning their stadium, which is just insanity. That means that they're pretty valuable without actually A, doing anything on the football field, and B, not owning their stadium. Two, you can sell the naming rights. I love the name Soldier Field. I think it has a lot of sentimental value. However, commercially speaking, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And three, you can now, again, from the commercial side, you can host the Final Four. You can host a Super Bowl. You can host the Big Ten Championship if it need be. You can try to host the Combine. You can have concerts all year round because who wants to go to a concert in Chicago in late October? Nobody. And then your stadium just going to sit empty for a couple months because it's too cold if it's an outdoor one. So having caught wind of this, the city of Chicago and my least favorite mayor in all of America said that they are going to try and release renderings of what they can do to Soldier Field to keep the Bears there by adding a dome to the existing structure. They released their renderings. To be honest, it doesn't look terrible, right? It looks actually pretty slick and whatnot. Two issues with it though. One is it costs $2.2 billion to renovate. Now, the city of Chicago is near and dear to my heart, but we can't sit here and pretend that they don't have a host of problems that they should probably be addressing with $2.2 billion instead of trying to keep a football team downtown for tax reasons. Secondly, they already had one shot to renovate Soldier Field and they botched it. It's terrible. It is got some sentimental value to it with the name and some of the original structure being kept while also basically replacing everything. I think they paid like $350 million to renovate it, and that was in early 2000s when $300 million in 2003 probably could have built you like U.S. Bank. Add maybe around $500 million in 2003 would have built you U.S. Bank. So like they could have just built a Jerry World of their own in 2003 if they wanted to, and they failed. And I wouldn't trust them to do it ever again. To be honest, I don't think they have any business trying to redo Soldier Field at all. So that's my primary take on it. Is I think it's a stupid idea for the Bears to stay. I think they just need to build their own stadium, collect all the revenue, dictate what they want to do with it and whatnot, and not listen to the city of Chicago anymore. Unfortunately.
Go off, King. Go off.
Do you agree? Disagree?
No, I think theoretically I agree with everything you said. I think making it a dome makes me sad as a football fan, but from a business standpoint, putting a roof on it makes the most sense. Like you said, just for the year-round revenue that you can generate. I can't believe that renovation was 20 years ago already. It doesn't really seem like it was that long ago.
Yeah, I can't believe it was that bad too.
Did you know that Lambeau Field is also not owned by the Green Bay Packers?
Who owns that?
The state. It's called like the Stadium District. It's
Who owns the Stadium District?
It's like the city or something.
So if Lambeau Field went up for sale tomorrow and they sold it for, let's say like 1.4 billion, who would get to collect?
I think it's mostly the city.
Anybody with that piece of paper?
Yeah, a lot of value in that paper, just like our quarterback said.
I was gonna get to that next. Yeah, because I know the
city
Bengals,
of Green Bay, and Brown County.
The Bengals, Bears, and Packers are the only three that don't sell naming rights to their stadiums, and the Bengals actually just changed that by selling their naming rights. So now it's down to the Bears and the Packers as the only two teams that don't have naming rights on their stadiums.
Does Soldier Field have like gates like sponsored? Is it
no,
like
but
the
they
Miller
got a
Lite
bunch
gate,
of Miller
the
Lite
US
shit
Bank
everywhere, and
gate?
Miller Lite's terrible. Where's the
There's
Spotted Cow gate?
They don't have that kind of money. But like at Lambeau, there's like the Quick Trip gate, the Miller Lite gate, the Oneida Nations gate. So
I
even
have
though
no.
like the
It's been so
stadium doesn't
long
have
since
those
I've been
naming
to a
rights,
Bears
there's
game at
so
Soldier
many.
Field. I think it was 2015.
Fair.
U.S. Bank does. I can confirm that though. So yeah, do you care that all that your franchise quarterback dissed the piece of paper that's hanging in your house? For those who missed it, Aaron Rodgers thinks that the Packers stock that people hang up is worthless.
Context keys are important, friends. Context keys or context clues are important. I mean, he's right. He's not wrong, but I think he was more so saying it as a response to the well-known PFT commenter on the Pardon My Take podcast, because PFT was giving him shit about, I own a piece of paper, so I own you, and blah blah blah. So he said it with a smirk on his face. Deep down, does he know that it's not worth anything? Yes, we all do. But there's a lot of sentimental value, and as long as he is my quarterback, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, unfortunately.
Lame. I'm just happy because I have a couple friends who own that, and I was happy to share that with them. That their favorite quarterback doesn't like their piece of paper. But neither
Hey,
here
he
nor
didn't
there.
say he didn't. He didn't say he didn't like
Okay,
it.
well, he
He just
thinks it's
said,
worthless, which I've never heard worthless in a good connotation.
again, all about context, my friends.
Whatever. Uh, well, the Packers lost their best player this offseason, in my opinion. And now the Bears' best player wants to leave. A lot of feelings about this. So Roquan Smith, the Bears' middle linebacker, has requested a trade. He is coming into the last year of his deal, I believe, and he's looking for Darius Leonard money out of the Colts, which I think was about 5 years, 90 mil, if I remember correctly. And so he is apparently far off on the negotiations with new GM for the Bears, Ryan Poles, excuse me. And so now his only tactic, I guess, is to request a trade. I don't
Five
think
years,
this.
99 mil, 52 guaranteed.
Damn, that's a lot. But I
Yep.
think Roquan is worth it. I think he is, again, a blue chip player, and we don't really have a whole lot of those. So we need to keep on to the talent that we can acquire through the draft and whatnot. So ultimately, I think trading him would be a mistake. However, I really don't think Roquan has as much power in this situation that he thinks he does, because he doesn't have an agent, which I really don't like, because there's a lot that goes into these, and having an agent can be so beneficial. Plus, it can just keep your focus on football, and they can take care of the stuff on the side, and you don't have to worry about it. And so I think there's a lot of finer points that Ryan Poles is probably suggesting. I'm not saying that Poles maybe isn't lowballing him. I didn't get the exact figure, but I saw on Twitter it was about 5 years, 95 million, is what I saw, which is still a hell of a lot of money. Um,
He's
and
only
so there's a
4
lot of
mil short of Darius.
yeah, there's a lot of finer points that go into these negotiations that an agent can wrap their head around, but maybe the player can't a little bit. So I don't like that. Also, there's this thing called the franchise tag that the Bears always have in their pocket, and they can just franchise tag him into the dirt if they wanted to, and prolong his stay with Chicago by at least 2 more years if they really wanted to. And so, by him, I mean, it's bringing light to the situation for sure. And I personally like Roquan on a personal level and as a player level. I just think this situation's not really going to go the way he thinks it's going to go.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. He's definitely a player I'd want to keep if he was on the Packers. I think I told you at the time when the Bears drafted him, I was like, "Damn it, I wanted the Packers to draft him." Since we
Don't
needed a
worry, they
linebacker
proceeded
so
to
bad at
draft
the
half
time.
the Georgia defense, anyways.
Yeah, that's fact. But no, I'm with you too on the whole agent thing. I know Richard Sherman tried making, a big deal out of it when he became his own agent. But again, you focus on football, you focus on playing, and hire someone to take care of the nitty gritty stuff.
At this point, if we had a show sponsored, we'd give a shout out. Currently don't have one, but if you want to be a show sponsor, please feel free to reach out to us on our website, and we'd be happy to talk to you. I was thinking if we could give a shout out to somebody right now, but I don't know if we were legally allowed to. Like,
I
hey,
mean,
everybody go to Culver's. if it's
or in
if
your
your
case, Raising
city,
Canes.
yeah, Raising Cane's, Culver's. I do like Culver's. This is not my favorite restaurant, but if
Hey, you
there's a
already gave a
Culver's
shout
or
out to Spotted Cow.
yeah, spot it. Well, they will never have to pay me to shout them out.
No
Uh,
Laris. Just some free product placement.
Free product placement on the 5 people that are listening. So thank you so much. Leroy Butler, who is, I distinctly remember one of our first ever lighting rants that we got, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So congrats to Leroy. I'm sure you're very happy about that.
I am. So I had like high hopes for his Hall of Fame speech just because I feel like it's been so many years in the making. Um, and I was a little disappointed. I don't know.
Did he jump into
It
the
was
crowd?
fine. No, there was nothing. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with it. It's just like sometimes you get overly hyped for something, and you're like, oh, that was just average. But yes, very very well deserved. It's about damn time. I had been on many a rants about why he was a better football player than Mr. John Lynch. And that was not me saying John Lynch should not be in the Hall of Fame. It was just me pointing out the fact that if John Lynch is in the Hall of Fame, then there is no reason on earth why Leroy Butler should not be in the Hall of Fame. And what was really cool about him just getting in is there was a ton of highlights shared by like the NFL Network and NFL and the Packers and stuff of just how damn good he was playing center field for some of those deep passes. And then even his sack that he had on Drew Bledsoe in the Super Bowl 31, when the Packers beat the Patriots. He literally sacked Drew Bledsoe and one of the offensive linemen from the New England Patriots at the same time. So, dude's just an absolute baller. Still has his roots firmly planted in Wisconsin. He's done a lot of good things for the state of Wisconsin. He's done a lot of fundraising for breast cancer awareness. He used to sponsor a lot of programs at the local high school. So, not only an awesome NFL football player, but just an awesome guy to have in the community here in the state of Wisconsin. So, super pumped and super happy for him.
You bring up Drew Bledsoe. Just brought to my attention that you know what the Bears and the Packers, for all the kind of grief they get about their playoff performances, have never done. They've never lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Although the Packers have lost to him in the playoffs, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. The first year he comes to the NFC.
Well, that was a pandemic year. You guys didn't have a true home field, so we'll just pin it on that, right? We'll not bring up Desmond King or anything.
Don't get me started on Lambeau in the wintertime.
No worries. I won't, because that would just bring me too much joy. Your boy Rich Bisaccia, the new special teams coach for the Packers, and if that name rings a bell, he was the interim head coach for the Raiders for the better half of the season last year. He's chewed out Amari Rodgers, and you typed that. He made Devondre Campbell puke.
Yeah, that's so friend of the show, John Isley. Don't know if John's even listening yet, but friend of the show nonetheless, because he's a fellow cheesehead like myself.
You should send it to him.
I will. He's gotten to know the Campbell family, tailgating at Lot 1 at Lambeau, and then has sat in the Campbell family tickets for a few games, including the playoff game last year, and he spent family night with their family. Has gotten to know them very well, and he shared with me actually earlier today, because he was at camp. I said, what the special teams look like, and he said, Richie B is an absolute animal. He said, learned that he made Dre puke during practice, and Devondre is not even on special teams. So I have no idea how he managed to pull that one off. But I've heard that his level of intensity is like tenfold what it had been the last few years. I know there was a play probably a week or two ago in camp when Amari Rodgers went for a fair catch, and Bisaccia got all up in his face about, if I wanted a fair catch, I would have told you to do a fair catch or something like that, and return the damn ball. And, sometimes I agree with a good fair catch, but I just love that there's finally some fire lit on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll fix all the problems, though.
It'll fix our special teams problems. Okay.
Yeah, right. Not buying that. Didn't they not look super hot in their preseason game?
To be honest, I didn't even watch the game. I was on a work trip. I watched a couple highlights. Saw Jordan Love throw some interceptions. Saw Romeo Doubs look pretty good. Saw Amari Rodgers look pretty decent. He had some good kickoff returns. But other than that, I didn't really watch. I don't know what that says about me as a Packer fan.
Do you put a lot of stock in preseason at all?
No. I'm pretty sure the year the Lions went 0-16, they went 4-0 in the preseason.
They absolutely did. I can't confirm. And the Ravens are undefeated in the preseason like the last 7 years or something.
Okay, that is a wild statistic. So I'll be down in Illinois this weekend. I'm definitely just going to bet the Ravens for the remainder of the preseason games and see how that goes.
It's such a bad idea.
Why? Why is that a bad idea?
This is preseason. You have no idea.
I know, but okay. If you're John Harbaugh and you are undefeated in the preseason, a part of you is like, I'm keeping the streak going. You're not going to say it. You're not maybe going to play Lamar Jackson.
So Lamar Jackson out for the year, going for 24th preseason win in a row would be quite the headline.
It just sounds like a fun little thing to keep rooting for.
All right. Well, I'm sure he'll factor in your wallet into this as well.
He will.
Right. David Pakiari is starting the year on the PUP list. Your All-Pro is the left tackle. You got to be concerned.
It scares me. It really does.
Sorry, context. He blew out his knee the last game of the 2020 season. No,
practice.
2020 season in practice.
Practice, not even a game.
It was December 31st of 2020. So yes. He played minimally in the Detroit Lions game last season and then went back on injured reserve. So it didn't stick. And now he is again on the physically unable to perform list. So
There was a really nice article that was published a while back about like it was probably right after the playoffs actually about like what actually happened, and like all the different shit they had to clear out of his knee and all the different buildup of scar tissue and stuff. But yeah, I mean now we're going on. I mean that was 8 months since that happened. Since he missed the playoffs. So I would say concern level is at like an 8 out of 10 for me personally right now.
sorry, I'm looking something up for one that's coming up here. I'm trying to educate myself. I'll just go ahead and do it now. Uh, did you know your quarterback went to South America and used ayahuasca?
Yeah. So I didn't know. I had no idea what that was. Did you learn about what this stuff does?
Well, I've heard it referred to very vaguely before in like Joe Rogan's podcast, and Alex Jones loves to talk about ayahuasca,
Oh
which
no.
doesn't really bode well for my argument because I think Alex Jones is an idiot. But yeah, when I saw that article, I kind of chuckled. I didn't even know that's how it's spelled. I had no idea
No.
how you spelled ayahuasca.
So do you know what it actually is? It's like a root from a plant in the Amazon that
It has
they like
DMT in
brew.
it, doesn't it?
Yeah, they brew it into a tea, and it's supposed to be like a 3 to 4 hour trip that makes you feel as though you're dying, and it's supposed to give you like a whole new perspective on like the universe and life. And I was just listening to another show where Arian Foster was talking about the fact that he's gonna go try it now.
Oh
Um,
God. But that guy
and
was all that guy
apparently,
believes the Earth is flat, so I don't know if that's a.
no, he doesn't. Arian Foster's not a flat earther.
I mean, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm like 99.9% sure.
Do you
He's
think when
got some
Rogers
out
and
there ideas,
what do you
but
think when Rogers is on ayahuasca that he's thinking about Brandon Bostic dropping the onside kick?
no, dude, he's thinking about I don't know what he's thinking about, but not that. He but the what I've heard is everyone that pretty much everyone that takes it has like these mind altering and perspective altering experiences. So I don't know. I don't know when he did it, if there's like last year or the year before when he started being Mr. Positivity. I don't know.
Well, I'm quick trying to see what exactly Arian Foster has for opinions out there. He did once say that he could beat a wolf one on one.
Yeah, he did say that.
Sounds like a guy who could use some ayahuasca. What could go wrong? Uh, anyways, I thought that was hilarious. Needed to share that for sure. Um, we talked about we got a lot of Packer centric stuff because there's not really a whole lot going on with the Bears. Is super interesting. Might be looking at 5 wins this year, but whatever. So Packers off the pup list is Christian Watson, Robert Tunyon, and your favorite Aaron Donald chippy guy, Elgin Jenkins. So that's good, right?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that's our number one receiver off the pup list. And I don't mean Christian Watson. I mean our tight end, Big Bob Tanyan.
You would put Tunyon over
Man,
Lazard?
it's sarcasm, but let me tell you, that
Oh, like
man can
what?
hit a softball a country mile. I've seen
All
that
right, well,
guy.
we need
I got a
context.
Miller Lite can. I got a Miller Lite can autographed by him. He was in the charity softball game here in Appleton. Um, he said, "I will only sign your Miller Lite can if you go get a brand new one and chug it for me." So I hightailed it to the concession, bought a Miller Lite, chugged it. Big Bob signed it for me. Pretty sure we gave him the nickname Big Bob because this was before his breakout season in 2020. But very excited to have him back. I think he said it specifically. I think people kind of forgot how good he was when he was at his best. I'm not saying he's going to be that good, but it'll be nice to have that back. Elton Jenkins back is huge, especially with Big 69 out and Christian Watson to be determined.
Yeah, it didn't sound like Rodgers was too happy with the rookie receivers today, and or he's losing his patience with them, which we will keep our eyes on that. But speaking of Lazard, a person in Michigan went to Caesar Sportsbook and put down $250 that Alan Lazard would get the most receiving yards out of the whole NFL this season. And if he does, this Michigan person wins $50,000. What would you? I mean, so that's probably what 200 to 1.
Yeah, just about.
Uh, would you rate it at 200 to 1, or would you rate that higher or lower?
I think that's probably about right. You have a top 5 quarterback. You are his number 1 target, but you are yourself a number 2 receiver at best. At best. At the very, very best.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
number
to me,
3.
it's, I'm not comparing. I'm not trying to compare Alan Lazard to Julian Edelman because they're two very different players. But it'd be like, Tom Brady rolling into the season with basically Gronk and Edelman, and me saying, "Shit, I think Edelman's gonna do it. Let me put 250 down on Edelman for get most receiving," because it's like that's not gonna happen.
No, it's not.
I don't think this is gonna happen. I think he's probably no. Actually, no. I think
I don't even
out of
think top
the
10.
well, I don't even think he's going to be top 3. He might be third in the NFC North. I think you're talking Jefferson and then my new favorite guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm definitely on the Amon-Ra St. Brown hype train. I like to say his name too, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Brothers with.
Equanimous St. Brown.
Yeah, there you go. Do you know why
Who
they got those names? Those crazy names?
I think they're named after Egyptian deities, aren't they?
Um,
I actually
maybe I
just looked
have.
this up the other day.
I might have my story confused then. I thought they had those names because their dad wanted them to stand out. Like
No, that
they
was
wanted
the
their names.
Saint. They added his dad's last name is Brown. I think it's John Brown.
Oh,
He
okay.
added Saint in him because he said it would look cool on the back of a football jersey. I'll tell you after the episode
Gotcha.
why I know that. Um, but yeah, so their first names come from Egyptian deities, which I think is actually kind of cool a little bit. But also Amon-Ra St. Brown is a mouthful, just as much as Equanimous St. Brown is also a mouthful. There is a third brother, but I didn't catch his name. So yeah, moral of the story is I think Lazard's not going to win the title. I think the last thing here before
He
we
might
can
not
start.
even have the most receiving yards on his own team.
Well, yeah, it depends if Romeo Dobbs is as good as everybody advertises.
Or if Randall Cobb just becomes the outlet.
He's not, but that's fine. I think the last one before we get to some of our final little nuances here is there was this sign posted at the Midway Airport in Chicago that you sent me. It was some sort of advertisement for the Bears and all of their glory. And it was a sign, I believe, that had Khalil Mack, Tariq Cohen, Mitch Trubisky, and Allen Robinson on it.
Yes.
This was up as of May of this year. And we are talking about a whole 0 of those players are still on the Bears. Trubisky's a Steeler. Mack is a Charger. Robinson's a Ram. And unfortunately, Tariq Cohen blew out his Achilles doing a private workout this offseason. So he is currently recovering from that. Hope he gets a shot next year back on a team. So that sign particularly doesn't make me super thrilled about the current state of my franchise. I bet it gave you a good laugh, though.
Gave me a very good laugh, and I just keep having to mentally prepare myself that someday my beloved Green Bay Packers will be in the same state as your beloved Chicago Bears.
It does ebb and flow, although it seems to ebb and flow more for other teams than not other teams. Do have 2 fan questions to get to this weekend. Our first ever fan question comes from someone we know quite well, host Mike Jokum of Pit Lane Parlay Podcast, friend of ours on Twitter, a good friend of a lot of people affiliated with this podcast, like friends, family, and things like that. People who are listening probably know who he is. Some people, at least. So, host, if you're listening, thanks for listening. Thanks for submitting the first ever fan question in Mouthguard podcast history. He wants to know, as an Eagles fan on his side, he wants to know if Jalen Hurts isn't the answer for the Eagles, is there someone that they could trade for right now to make them, quote unquote, better? I'll just go ahead and say that Jalen Hurts is not the answer, but again, that's
No, he's definitely not the answer. Well, it's not Deshaun Watson. I can tell you that. I don't know. Mitch Trubisky?
he's like the starter though. Until he sucks enough and Pickett replaces him. Like the 2 that
I
came to
know.
mind is Jimmy G would be the only one out there that I would trade for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're talking like Jalen goes down with an injury and you're super desperate, you can maybe go get Sam Darnold. But I also think their backup situation with Gardner Minshew, I trust Gardner Minshew a lot, and I think he's actually an underrated talent on there. So I would actually roll with Minshew before I started delving out fourth round picks or whatever for other quarterbacks out there.
What are your thoughts on Jacoby Brissette?
I don't like him. I think he's a good dude and an average quarterback at best.
I think he's better than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, but the Browns aren't going to trade him.
No.
They need him now technically, unless they go get Jimmy G. Which how funny would it be if they traded Baker Mayfield for a fifth round pick and then like traded for Jimmy G and used a fourth? I think they would take another massive L for the Browns this season.
Yep.
And then second question comes from my good friend Zach Jorgensen, who you actually sat next to at my wedding. He was the pilot from North Dakota. Yeah, small world. So you guys can nerd out about piloting or whatever if you want on your free time, but he wants to know who the best fantasy value is for the Minnesota Vikings.
Best value. So I don't know. I feel like it's hard to go against Jets, man. Justin Jefferson is.
Yeah, but is he a value though? Because he's probably going to be like either super expensive at an auction setting or like a high. He's going to fetch a high place.
He is, but okay.
So if you're talking like a low round steal or maybe someone on the cheaper side of the auction, is there anyone that would stick out?
Because
to me, I think
who's their Madison? Is that still their?
Yeah, their backup running back.
I think you get good value out of him as a backup running back.
Well, Dalvin's usually out 4 to 6 games a year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that. I think Irv Smith's going to have a pretty good year, if I'm being honest. I think he unfortunately had that injury that knocked him out the whole season last year. But I think he's a more than capable tight end. And I'm curious to see how the new Vikings offense looks, because I think if they can finally get some defensive stability and more 21st century offense going, I think they can definitely make a huge impact in the NFC North and be a contender to dethrone the Packers. But if we're talking on the fantasy side, I do like Irv Smith Jr., and I think Madison could be good to put on the bench just in case something does happen to Dalvin.
Yeah, I'll stick with Madison.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show with a segment called Get That Man a Mouthguard. It's going to go to somebody who we saw on social media just kind of get ratioed, or I wouldn't say humiliated, but definitely had an interaction that didn't go to their favor. This Get That Man a Mouthguard, the first ever one is actually going to go to Aaron Anderson, a local Denver sportscaster who took a pregame photo of one Melvin Gordon catching a football on the sideline, and it looks like he has something sticking out of his sock on his leg. And the reporter said that it looks like he's dealing with some sort of foot contusion and has a pad on his right foot. Turns out Melvin Gordon corrected him on Twitter by saying that that was his cell phone, at which point that got 110,000 likes on social media and probably didn't really make Aaron feel all that well about his tweet. So, as always on this podcast, huge Melvin Gordon fans. So we appreciate that burn. And Aaron, you might need a mouth guard for the week.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen the picture? Clearly you've seen the picture. This is so new to me. Wow. It does kind of look like a soccer shin guard, but it just also looks so out of place that I would not think it was something protective. I don't know.
He's just like one of us. He just, kind of puts his phone wherever it fits and gets to it. I kind of like that about Melvin. I appreciate that about him, for those who've seen Letterkenny.
I love this reply. He apologized about it. And Wesley Hypes, Westman 880 says, "Are you going to are you going to like apologize for the misinformation and correct it, or just leave it be like nothing happened?"
Did he respond?
No, he did not.
Oof. I bet he probably just kind of logged off for the day. Oh, he did say, "Whoa, RIP my mentions."
So you just make shit up and don't correct it, Solid reporting.
Well, he said the Broncos running back missed practice time last week with what Coach Hackett called a foot contusion. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just kind of like digging the
I,
hole a little deeper.
I
But
think he's
that's
just I think he's just kind of a victim of a shitty situation. Like I don't think he was trying to make anything up. However, seeing a shin guard and thinking it is for a foot contusion is kind of an unforgivable mistake. I've never had a foot injury that required a shin guard. I could see like an ankle brace, but it just does not look like an ankle brace whatsoever in this photo.
no. So that's our first ever one of those. We kind of have more segments coming, but I think they'll become a little more relevant when the football season goes, because then we will have a lot more material to pick from. But that is it for our first ever official episode of the Mouthguard podcast. From David and I, we really want to thank you again for listening. Hope to hear from you about how this episode went, and we will talk to you weekly now going forward. And we kind of have a couple. We're hoping to do a live recording, like so, where we're watching the Monday Night Football game as it's happening and talking about the week's worth of news, especially about the games that just happened on Sunday. So we have a couple cool things like that coming along. So we're looking forward to that and kind of just immersing ourselves into this season and getting to discuss football with you fine folk out there. So again, thank you so much. Find us on social media, and we hope you have a great week.
Stay cheesy, my friends.
That's not going to be a thing, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
I was just looking at Twitter and I was laughing that Rashawn Gary says hashtag put cheese on everything.
He's not wrong. Cheese does belong on a lot of things,
It
but that's
does.
not
It
going to be a
does.
thing.
It's not.